Hello guys, my name is Nikesh. Welcome to Microsoft SQL Server tutorial. So in this session we will see how to use the identity column in a table and how to use DBCC check identity and how to set the identity value and how to use the identity insert. So these all things we will cover in this session. So before that, in our last video we were using this TBL student. So as you can see in this table we have total four columns, that is ID, name, Gmail and age. So let's see this property of this table. So when we go to table students and when we expand that column, so in that we can see their properties. So this ID has been set as a primary key. This name is envarchar, and Gmail is also data type envarchar, and age is a data type of integer. So why do we set a ID as a primary key in a table? So in a table we set this ID as a primary key because to identify each record uniquely. So that's why we set a ID as a primary key in a table. So then why do we use identity column in tables? So identity column is used because whenever we insert a new record in a table, every time we specify the ID. So now at present time we have total 7 records in this table student. So if you want to insert a new record in this table, so let's see. If you want to insert the new record in this table, so we want to specify the ID also. So total we have 7, so we want to insert a new value, we will say 8, and after that we will write whatever values we want to insert in the table. This is how we insert a data into a table. So let's insert some data into it. Let's give it as Nike, and let's give it as a Gmail as Nike gmail.com, and insert his age. So let's give it age as 17. So when we insert this, so you can see the one row affected. So when we check the data in this table, you can see we have total 8 records. So this is how we normally insert a record into a table. So but when we use this identity, what happened? We do not want to insert this ID every time whenever we insert a new record. This will be inserted by SQL Server. So how do we set that ID as an identity column? So for that we have total two ways. One is graphical and another is query way. So let's see graphical way. So for that way we'll click on right click on this table. We will say new table, and in that we will create a new table first. So we have got this table window. So we will in this we have total two columns. One is ID. Let's set its data type as integer, and it will allow it do not allow null. We will set it as a primary key. So second column we will have name. It will be of envarchar and it allows null. So when we expand this column properties, seed and increment we are set as 1. So basically what it is doing here. So the first value which we insert in our table, that will be accepted as a seed value. So whenever we insert a data, we will say the data ID will be 1, and after that whenever we insert a record, it will be go on adding by 1. If the first record is 1, then another record when we insert it, it will be add by this 1. This 1 and 1 is equals to 2. Then after that when we insert the third record, it will be added by 2 plus 1. This is how the data format is inserted in this identity column. So we have set this identity specification as yes, and this identity seed and increment we have set both as yes. So when we right click and save this table, so save table, we will say table 1 here. So let's save this and let's close it. And when we select the table first, so we will select the table 1. So when we go to this table folder and when we refresh it, so we will able to see that table 1 which we have created now. So this is the table which we have created now. So when we select it and when we got this IDs and name column, you can see that we are not inserted any data till now. So before inserting data, we will check its property. When we expand this and when we goes to column, you can see that this ID has been set as a primary key. Then when we see this property here, so you can see that the identity it has been set as true, and identity increment and seed, this both has been set as 1. So this is this table has been set as a identity. So let's see this tbl students property also once. So when you go to table students, expand column folders, right click on ID, and when we will get this box. So this is the property of table student. So you can see here in this table students, it has been not set as a identity column. So when we not set a table as identity column, it will show as false, and the increment and seed value will be set as 0. So this is when this will be shown when a table is not set as a identity column. So now let's insert a data into table students. So let's insert a data. We will say insert into tbl student, table inter table 1, and we have to give values in the bracket. We do not want to give any ID for whenever we insert data, so we will simply give the name here. We will give as ram, and when we execute this, you can see that the data has been inserted into table, and when we select the data from this table, you can see that ID it has been set by SQL Server, and the name has been set as Ram. This is what identity does. And now when we insert another data, let's insert as Sam. So you can see here another data is also inserted, and you can see here how we are getting the data automatically. ID is been set by SQL Server. So this is what identity basically does. We have set it seed value as 1 and increment is 1. So we are inserted the first data, it has been set as seed value 1, and after that whenever we insert a data, it will be increment by 1 and 1. So if we insert another data, it will be that this 2 will be add by 1. It will be we will set the ID as a 3. So let's see that also. Let's insert another record. Let's give it sign. This will be set as 3. So you can see here this ID has been set as 3. So this is what identity basically does. So if by chance we have deleted some data, okay, if you have deleted a data, for example we have deleted this data of Sam. So delete, we will say delete from table 1 where id is equal to 2. So we are deleting this data of 2 ram. So when we select it and when we press F5, this data have been deleted. So when we see that the 2 SAM value is not there, so what if you want to here we have got some gap here in this record. So we have got one value, ID of 1 and ID of 2 is missing here. So this will be a misleading of a data. So such kind of data should not be such type of problem should not be happen in a table. So if you want to fill this gap, then how we can fill this gap? So let's try to insert this. Let's see it will fill this gap or not. Let's insert this name as John. Let's see it will fill that gap or not. So this data has been inserted in this table. So you can see here that gap has been not filled. It has been directly incremented after 3. So for that let's try the ID. We want to set ID of 2. We want to fill this ID. So when I try to insert this data, it will throw out an error that An explicit value for the identity column in TBL table 1 can only be specified when a column list is used as a identity insert is on. So basically it is saying that we want to set this table as a identity insert on. So when we set that identity insert on, we can fill that gap, and we will able to insert this data. For that we want to say set identity identity insert identity insert in table 1 on. So when we do this, the it will be set as identity table on. So now when we try to insert this value, the gap will be filled. So why we are getting now also error? Because we are set this table now as a identity insert on. So we want to also specify for why we are inserting this both value. What are this value for in this table? We want to specify the column also for what we are specifying. So we will say ID and we will say name. So for these two columns we are inserting this value. So now when we do this, the data will be inserted. So when we go to TBL one, you can see that the gap has been filled. So if we do not want this identity as insert, so if you want to off, we will say simply say as off. After that, we do not want to insert the ID by us. So now we can insert the ID. This ID will be directly inserted by SQL Server. We do not want to insert any ID or name. So when I do this, so let's change the name. Let's give the name as Suresh. So I have given the name as Suresh. So now when I do this, the data also inserted. So you can see that I got the file ID as Suresh. So this was identity insert. So let's see what is DBCC check identity. So let's see if you deleted this row fully from this table, and we want to let's see what happens when we delete this data. So when we delete the data from table 1, we were having total 5 records that all have been deleted. Let's see the table. We do not have any values. So now let's insert some data. The last ID value was 5. So what do you think? This value will be set as 1, or this value will be set as 6? So this value will be set as a 6, because now also the table has been set as a identity column. So the last deleted record ID was having 5, and that 5 was added on by 1, and we got ID as 6, and this Suresh value name has been set as a 6. So we do not want such things to be happen. So for that we use DBCG. So let's delete this data, and let's set this table as a, let's set the DBCC value, DBCC check ident. We want to set this in table 1 received by 0. We are saying that in DBCC check ident in TBL1 received by 0. So when I do this, this DBCC has been set into TBL student. So now when we insert a data into TBL table 1, this will be set as a ID 1. So when I select the data from TBL's to table 1, this value has been set as 1. So this is what uh, DBCC does. So I hope you all understand this SQL Server tutorial, identity column, and DBCC. If you all like this session, please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that like button. So thanks for watching. watching, and until then I will meet you in the next video.